Alrighty, welcome back to the next Duel Commander League match on MTGO. I'm here as always together with Samuel,
Hi everyone.
and today we're having a look at the matchup between Mechin and Matthieu Tassa. Matthieu is a member of the committee. He was on our interviews for 2 times already, I think, and he's currently on Cloud. And Thomas Mechin is also a name to many players who I think prefers to play control-ish blue decks most of the time. He has the current title of the French national champion, um, which he acquired with Vivi, if I remember correctly.
I
There
remember
was a really,
that game.
really cool final with Underworld breach lines and whatsoever. And here we are, those guys battling each other. We're having a look at Loud side. Esper Sentinel is definitely a good way to start the game against a deck that tries to interact stack based, I would say.
Absolutely.
Having in mind that your opponent might come up with some graveyard shenanigans, which most likely end up in storm lineups. I think it's a good decision to go for the Lion's Edge here.
Yeah, it's the most interactive card that he can get early here. He has his next two land drops lined up. Oh, the Grief can take the Line Sash. I'm not, but it will come back with a pre-war formalware. So, uh, interesting dynamic here. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's true.
the graveyard is important to the Emmet deck. It does take a while for it to be relevant because it either has to be Emmet flipping at 14 cards or um or some other lineup of oh, okay.
Oh,
This is the reanimator Emmet version, so
you can have a look at the deck list in the description. I would still expect Thomas to have the Broodlord combo inside, since it's, I mean, within this league, I think there was not. Oh, I'm actually not entirely sure, but I would assume that the players packed some Graveyard Hate against each other because there's also Elliot playing Tazigur, and Flame War also has some Graveyard synergies going on and stuff.
yeah.
Mm. But I wouldn't expect him to play the pure reanimator line here, since the deck has some really cool lines to finish with. Marcus recently played the deck too. There is the Phantasmal Image loop with the dragon and different sorts of things you can assemble, which most of them I think come from CDH, if I remember correctly. But still, they're here. Emmet is a great commander for that, and yeah, maybe we get to see some shenanigans here. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
not hitting a land drop.
Who?
Tassa. Right? Oh no, never mind.
Oh, he's on the draw.
Yeah, true. He's
Yeah.
on a draw.
So this was an interesting turn. I'm curious why he played it the way he did. If he attacked with Cloud, both players know the hands or most of the hands. So attacking with Cloud meant he thought, okay, well, I want to get Cloud back with pre-war formalware and
Exactly, yeah.
get another search. That was denied. And now the Heli Trooper is, in my mind, more of a damage source than it is a um like a toolboxy card, right? It gives flying to equipped creatures and makes the equip costs cost less. Is there anything I'm forgetting?
No, I think that's exactly it. I mean, I think it's mainly played because it, with most of the equipments that you play in the 99, it gives you a free equip.
Yeah. Yeah, which
Which,
absolutely makes sense.
yeah,
Um but yeah, he had lines that were more interactive. He
Yep.
could have gotten the Lion Slash back with either the pre-war formalware or the extraction specialist, or cast on thin ice on the Emmet, and with the Profane Tutor resolving, we're probably going to see this Lord of Change on the battlefield next turn, and since he has no interaction for that, he's basically committing his whole next turn if he wants uh, to on thin icing it for 4 mana with the
Mm.
Ward 3, and yeah,
I th- I think that's okay. I mean, because otherwise the Lord is quite sticky, and I don't see like a big upside of exiling Emmet here, to be honest. Because once the Lord sticks, you don't get through with your creatures anymore. So
that's
it's a
true.
very costly turn for sure. And luckily, apart from maybe some bounce effects, Dimir usually has not that much interaction going against enchantments. Then again, as you said, Thomas knows about it since he had a peek at his hand, and yeah, it seems to resolve. At least the Helitrooper can come in for 1 damage this turn. I mean, you can even attack with Cloud here, right? It should be a similar outcome as last turn. Oh, interesting. Attacking with
Oh, sending
all
all
3
in?
creatures.
I mean, yeah, he gets to give it flying with the Heli Trooper. It's
Okay,
not
that makes
equipped
sense.
creatures are flying. When he attacks, he gives someone else flying.
Yeah.
And now we see the Cloud die. That could be a pre-combat something next turn. He can pre-war formal where if he finds a land, then he can play maybe a Jitter, and equip it to the Heli Trooper.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are several lines to go for. At that point, there usually the decks play some kind of swords also. Either I think
Yeah,
most of the time swords of fire and ice, which is a decent equipment in this case because you can equip the Esper Sentinel for free. For now, you can't cast it, but next turn you can. That's definitely that's a brutal thing here because you have to consider to face counter magic. Your opponent has more or less the full information. Okay, here we see the Swords of Fire and Ice.
yeah.
That's an information that Thomas does not have now, and this can definitely change the way things develop. Because if you
True.
get a free equip on the Sentinel, then you can attack for 5 damage turn by turn, draw cards, and yeah, I think the protection from blue is not too relevant outside of not being able to block with Emmet. But for now, it seems for Thomas that Matthieu is more or less dependent on. Oh, that's brutal.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
here,
that really
yeah,
hurts.
that hurts a lot. That's a really
He's
really good
already
play.
drawn 3 cards of the Lord of Change before. Now he gets to trade it for the Esper Sentinel. Actually, not even trade it, because if he redeploys the On Thin Ice, uh,
Oh, yeah.
there's still the ward from the Lord. So that might have been. I'm not sure how considered that was. That seemed like a very fast click. Maybe he forgot about the ward until he had to actually think about paying for it. Maybe not. Um, but yeah, now his hand actually he has protection from blue from with the sword
If the sword resolves, right?
if the
Because
sword resolves. Yes,
yeah, and now he has again hand information, and with the 6/6 on board.
and he's staring down 9 cards in hand as well. So
Yeah,
we might see 2 black mana. It's either a tutor or it is a tutor. Could have also been some form of reanimate on the grief to take the sword if that was what he's looking for. But with the demonic tutor, he can be getting basically anything.
yeah.
Of course, anything, but He
Oh, a
has
show
a
and
lot of
tell.
room.
That's cool. I like that. Will most likely result in another
The
crazy card
extraction
coming down.
specialist makes sense,
Oh, here we have the Brood
and
Lord. Let's see. Yeah, sadly, you don't have mana left. Like, if you get you would get a Line Sash instead in order to break the Brood Lord loop, which is currently not threatening you
yeah,
because Thomas is missing 1 mana to cast a Saw in Half. But I think for next turn, you should definitely find something. So here we have Glimmerlens, the boots, a copy equipment. Oh, he actually plays both swords. I like that. Which
definitely
means,
spicy.
yeah,
It feels like a big commitment to make because like the 3 mana to play, 2 mana to equip can be
okay.
difficult.
He went for the sacrifice, which means, yeah, okay, never mind. If there is, because he has 6 cards in hand, so he can go for the sacrifice, and there is likely a second reanimation spell in hand. So I think at that point, Matthieu already lost, right? Okay, here we see the corpse dance, and then there's enough mana to go for the saw in half,
Yeah.
eventually increasing the storm count and most likely finishing with the tendrils. That's a bummer. I would have liked to see in an ideal world, Matthieu would top deck a land and cast both swords, and then you gain 2 times the triggers from both swords. That would be powerful.
Yeah.
Attacking with a 6/5, dealing 10 damage. Opponent has to discard 2 cards. You get double untap.
Not
That's
not quite
what
because
do you mean? Not quite.
the cloud came back with an extraction specialist,
Oh, it cannot
so
attack, right?
it
Yeah,
couldn't attack
true,
or block.
true, true,
Um,
true. My bad. But yeah, then you take the Haley Trooper, and at least you get all those triggers once.
yeah. But yeah, this hand looks somewhat better. The Dranith prevents an early loot, and he's on the play, so
I think this hand looks absolutely great against archetype and an archetype like that.
yeah.
Branif can definitely uh, prevent your opponent from casting several things. You have Voice of Victory, which shuts down the entire counter magic suit. Ranger also gives you some bonus points. And then
Yeah,
you have the Jolt Awake, which gets back Dranif or Voice if Thomas decides to handle them now.
and you can also
That's
sack the oh, no, never mind, you only get 2 energy from the Jolted Awake. He
yeah,
would have
it's
to
okay.
he could get a Giver of Runes with the Ranger in order to produce the energy to get back.
You
Um,
you keep saying Giver of Runes. Well, you mean Guide of Souls.
Guide of Souls, yeah, you are correct. I don't know why,
um,
that's just a language tick.
Sometimes
Okay, I don't know if there's a good recruiter target that is better than playing Drannith here, because playing Drannith here means that Emmet isn't in play next turn and doesn't start stonewalling some things the deck is trying to
exactly.
do. He's attacking for 3 with the Voice of Victory. Um, Voice of Victory, also a great card in combination with Guide of Souls. Um,
Yeah, and Skull Clamp
so and Skullclamp.
if it comes to skull clamping.
So I'm curious to see if there's a land drop next turn. If not, then we could see a cloud to get the Skullclamp
Yeah.
and basically guarantee the land drop the turn afterwards. Frantic
Oh,
Search into Archon Metamorphosis Fanatic with
that's
the
rough.
Reanimate, that would be very powerful. There
And here we
is
go.
and the animate dead will be on the Fanatic, which means that the Archon comes back as a lifelinker and it's untapped. Um, yeah, now we're seeing the power of Reanimator.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how quickly things can turn around.
Absolutely. Yeah, those lineups are always very, very hard to beat.
Yeah.
There is literally nothing that could. I mean, now you can go for the solitude,
Yeah, he can get a
and
Solitude with a Cloud. I mean, Solitude now, it does put him way ahead on life, but that's not too relevant. And the Skullclamp Refuel with Cloud is not to be trifled with. And Dranith is still in play, which means Emet-Selch is far away from coming down.
yeah,
But there are 5 cards in hand. If he wants to attack with the Fanatic, he has to pay another 2 mana, which it's always an interesting decision with the Dance of the Dead.
yeah. But I mean, it would be blocked by the recruiter
And gain him
since
5 life in the process. So
that's true. But I'm
yeah,
not sure if at that point the life gain is too crucial here.
yeah,
It's definitely on Matthieu's side. It's not too crazy to lose the recruiter since we're not playing failure. We don't want to make use of repetitive triggers.
yeah.
So
Oh, we
that's
are playing failure.
okay. Okay, I apologize. I take that back. Here we go with the clicker shenanigans. Yeah, I think Skull Clamp is the right thing to do. Refueling your hand. Okay.
Also, the ability to make a land drop here is very good.
Yes, definitely. Finding a Mother of Runes.
Probably be played after combat.
Yeah, not
And
too bad.
suddenly, yeah, that was a big swing.
Absolutely.
But having access to Solitude to remove the the Archon right away, meaning he only got 1 trigger off of it, is definitely strong. There was plenty of time to stock up last turn. He's now got a healthy 7 cards in hand. And I don't know if the deck plays Toxic Deluge. So
I think it does,
looking
yeah.
at him tapping 2 mana, it could, oh, Cabal Ritual. Interesting.
Psychic
Into
Frog. Okay.
Psychic Frog. Discarding
Starting
a
Lord of
Lord of
Change.
Change. Maybe we see another Reanimate.
Yeah. Could very likely result in another reanimation spell. Even Stronghold is also on board. Oh, you see a corpse dance.
Corpse Stance without buyback. He could have paid for the buyback here. Um,
True.
but he could also be doing something else with this mana. This is 6 damage coming in now. The Psychic Frog also threatens to do a lot of damage with all the
Yeah.
cards that are being drawn by the Lord of Change. I'm not sure if there's any way in these decks to scam the Corpse Dance, or if it's just always going to be either the Broodlord coming into play or something with haste.
I think most of the time it's a Broodlord combo.
There is. Oh, there's a Trench
Oh,
George.
that's spicy.
That is very cool.
Yeah, indeed.
He could,
Okay.
if he had, he's paying 2 mana. If he has the, uh, what's it called? The comma piece, saw in half on the
Yeah.
Lord of Change, he would get to draw another 6 cards.
Yeah.
No, it's in apostrophe is just a Toxic Deluge. Very good Toxic Deluge here.
Yeah, definitely.
The Psychic Frog got to survive. And we see, these top decks have been, I mean, not necessarily top decks, but the way these cards have been lining up has been pretty strong. Having a
Absolutely. I mean,
Skyclave now to deal with the Psychic Frog. He's only got 2 cards left from all the discarding and all the cards he spent last turn to get
yeah.
all this board advantage. He still has to deal with a 5/5 Metamorphosis Fanatic if
Uh,
uh Broodlord in graveyard with 1 card in
dangerous.
hand.
It
We have
is
seen, what have we
dangerous.
seen? We've seen Dance. Okay, Emet-Selch is a good name here. He's a bit away from that now. And I mean, discarding the Broodlord does definitely make sense. 8 mana is still at least 4 land drops away here,
Yeah.
or 3 land drops with the Crystal Vein. And now we see an Emet-Selch cast for 6 mana. I mean, this wasn't like it's not the best disruptive flute, because the commander was cast right away, but um, it did cost him an entire land. It cost the Crystal Vein. Um, the Emet-Selch does get to start digging now, but yeah, I feel like we're going to
What?
see a sort of Fire and Ice. We could also see a pre-war Formalware.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you
Maybe
can
with the
also.
Skull Clamp, the Feast and Famine also makes sense.
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think I would rather go for the pre-war formalware to set up some things next turn. Gives you another recruiter trigger if you like. Gives you back Drunev, which, well, at that point is not too crazy, but still can do things.
That was 3 lands, not
I'm a
2.
bit surprised that Matthieu decided to play the flute over Thalia, because I think if you can foresee that your opponent plays Emmet, it would have been, or it might have been better to force the interaction of the Skyclave apparition, because it was like
Yeah.
more or less the only timing window where you could have brought down Thalia.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. I I have not played against Emet-Selch enough to be constantly aware of this flip mode. Like, I was caught off guard here as well. Um,
Yeah, because that's another thing, right? If you, it's a way to get control of your end game, if you so will. If you're out of cards, you don't have anything to do, then you get the York will on the backside,
yeah,
and as we can see here, it's causing problems quite quickly.
absolutely. I mean, I don't even know if he's searching for anything to do with this Broodlord. He can simply attack for 13 now, with his 6/6 commander. Oh, actually, no, the commander looks like it has flying, but it does not. So he can get a removal spell for both the cards um, in play in order to get through with the Emmet. The Storm count is 4. If he has the mana, he can also just have gotten a Tendrils of Agony. Uh,
Yeah.
with one more Storm count from the graveyard, that's also lethal. I think there were a bunch of lines to get to lethal from the graveyard here. Emet-Selch flipping is a nightmare most of the time.
Yeah, it's something that you easily forget, but
Yeah,
you constantly have to respect. And
yeah,
that's definitely the play that Thomas went for, obviously. And here we see the tendrils, as you said. So that results in a sudden death.
and a quick 2-0 victory.
Yeah, cool game overall. A little bit of back and forth. In the end, it was decided by Reanimator. I think most of the time that's the case, because you have to have some very specific hate for this matchup. I mean,
Yeah,
the Cloud does play that, but you have to have it. And getting a Skullclamp definitely helps you to access that. But then again, it's not like, you know, reliably on each starting hand. So
yeah,
you have to
and
have some time to go to get there, and sometimes you don't get there, and then it's just not enough.
Emet-Selch is a deck that has access to blue and the black tutors, which means that he, as we saw, has the ability to construct his hand over quite a few turns. Cloud does not present a clock very quickly.
Yeah.
Um, Trading, like, sure, paying 4 mana to draw 4 cards with Cloud and still have a Skull Clamp in play is a pretty strong interaction. Actually, you're drawing 5 cards because you actually get the Skull Clamp as well. But what that doesn't do is present any sort of threatening board state if you're doing it turn 4. Um, and I think that is one of the issues that Cloud does have. They fix it with a couple of different um, a couple of different cards. I think there's the equipment that gives plus X for cards in hand. These sorts of things, they do
Hand of
exist.
Vecna, you mean? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But
There are definitely a couple of ways to fix that, but in the end, it's against the power play that Emmett brings up. It's mostly not enough, you know. Um, as I said, some very specific things have to come together, and I think the second hand, and especially the draws after that for Cloud, were pretty good. Just
yeah,
that, you
pretty
know,
good.
the
But
interaction with the
Emet-Selch was better.
Archon was, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, that was an interesting game. I'm looking forward to the next session. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see each other in week 5.
Yeah, see you next time.